I got out of the shower and my hair is a mess. And I don't feel like styling it because it's fucking hard. So I put a beanie on so I can just disguise my hair. I know it looks like shit. I know I look fucking ugly now. Don't judge me, you asshole. And I know I haven't shaved and that looks like shit too. So fuck you. Don't worry about it. Just ignore that. Anyways, when I was a kid, I had this super fucking rich friend named David. By the way, all the names are going to be altered for the sake of the video because privacy and shit. And when we were young, I got gaslit hard into thinking I was a fucking superhero by David's dad. And it was funny as shit. So David and I were fucking nerds. We were losers and we didn't have anything going for us. So we just kind of sat around and fucking talked about designing Iron Man suits because he was rich and that's what we did because I was like, dude, he's gonna like give me a fucking Iron Man suit because I'm his best buddy. And he was like, sure. So I would like design mansions with him and like the dream about the day where he gives me all of his money and I become fucking Iron Man and fight crime and like he's like, yeah, I'm gonna give you some Spider-Man webbing, I'm gonna give you an Iron Man suit, it's gonna be dope. And then we had a fucking like we had like a giant mansion planned and we even had like specific rooms in the mansion where like there was one room that's gonna be a fucking video game room, there's another room which is gonna be my Rubik's Cube room, there's another room which is gonna be my Bop It room because we were super into Bop It because like our teacher held a Bop It competition. So after class I would be fucking grinding Bop It for hours in the teacher's room after class, just a Bop It fiend. And eventually I did become the Bop It champion. And I was so proud, like, and then at the end of at the end of the year, they held an award ceremony, and all the kids were like, yo, you got like a 4.0 GPA, you got like all this good shit, you were like perfect attendance. And my award was I was the fucking Bop It champion, and I was so fucking proud of myself. I got a little certificate and everything, it was awesome. Anyways, back to gaslighting. So keep in mind, I was a very dumb kid. I was very gullible, and I fell for everything, and also I was younger than I was supposed to. I was supposed to be in 4th grade, because I was very young, but then my parents put me in 5th grade, because they were like, fuck it. We don't want to have this homie in school for more than we have to. Let's just get him out, you know? So I was like 9 years old in 5th grade, and everyone else was like 10, you know? So keep that in mind, because I get gaslit hard, and it's funny. So then eventually I was talking about I almost said his name. I was talking to David about designing mansions and shit as we did, and like fucking becoming Tarzan and Iron Man and Spider-Man and shit, swinging on webs in our mansion and everything, you know, as kids do. And then eventually he was like, yo, my dad went on an expedition to fucking Egypt because he travels the world and shit. And he found these rings, and I was like, for real, yo? And he's like, for real. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. But these rings were like buried under an Egyptian tomb. And I was like, what the fuck? He's like, yeah. Don't tell anyone. But them shits have fucking superpowers, dude. And I was like, for real, dude? And he's like, yeah. He's like, can I trust you with the rings? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, come over after school. And I was like, all right, I got you, homie. So then after school, I rushed over to David's house. Almost said his name again. But I rushed over to David's house, and then his dad was showing me pictures of him and his home, him and his family in the helicopter, and him going off on vacations to all these different places. And then we went to David's room, and then we found it, the suitcase. There was a suitcase with, I think, like 8 rings. And then David took the center one. It was yellow. And he was like, this one is the one I want. It has the power of the sun. And then David was the self-elected leader because he's the rich dude. And then his dad found all this. So I couldn't complain because, like, I'm getting fucking superpowers. I don't need to be a leader. David's the one that got all the rings, so he is the leader. And he has the fucking powers of the sun, dude. And he's like, let me tell you. Each ring holds a different element and different powers. This ring holds like this power, this ring holds this power. And he reviewed them all. And I was like, I want the power of thunder, because I recently saw fucking Thor, and I wanted to be like Thor. I wanted the power of fucking electricity. I was literally having dreams after this day. I was having dreams of me like fucking throwing electricity at gods and just being like, ha ha ha, I'm a fucking superhero, just doing backflips and shit, beating villains and shit. And then David's like, okay, you have the power of electricity. And my dad and I says that the power comes from strength and endurance, so we're gonna have to train. And my favorite part about this is what I've learned later, way later on in life, is that the dad saw us and was like, these people are fucking fat losers. They just play video games and drink soda all day. How do I make them not fat losers? So then he developed this whole plan of us being superheroes so we could get out and exercise. So then like later on at recess and then like lunch, we'd be at the handball courts, like fiending handball. And then like, whoa, everyone's gone after school and stuff. We'd be fucking cranking out push-ups, running and shit, because we needed to protect the fucking world. We're gonna be the saviors of the fucking world. I have the powers of a god that fucking holds electricity in my hand, throws electricity and shit, and he has the powers of the fucking sun, dude. And I was like, oh my god, we need to protect this school, but I'm not strong enough. I can't even like get the electricity to zap, you know? And then I was like, I need to fucking work out more. So then I was just doing push-ups. Me and David were fucking doing push-ups, fiending. We were fiending, dude. And then the dad was like, holy shit, I can't believe it worked, you know? And then we all got each of our rings, and then there was a couple other homies that joined, and then we all were fucking fiending, training every day. Like, we literally started doing like karate moves and shit with each other. It was horrible. I was punching David all the time. I was bullying that little kid. Because and I was getting bullied too. It was tough out there, homie. It was a fucking war zone of children punching each other and shit. And then eventually, like, we were all like, damn, our powers haven't even kicked in. And the daddy's like, yeah, it takes years. And then the one power, he had the green one. He had the fucking emerald on his ring. And by the way, these were really nice rings. Like, they look dope as shit. I really wish I could, like, I still had it, because like they look dope as fuck. And then the one guy was like, he was like the most in shape one too. Like, he actually like did sports and shit. So then like he was like, I think I got it. And then we were like, what? And then he's like, I think I got it. And I was like, what the fuck? No shot. So then he starts meditating on a bench. We were literally all in the grass, and he just goes on a bench and starts meditating. And I swear to God, out of nowhere, some wind starts blowing. And then, like, the wind starts blowing behind him, and his hair starts flooshing, and we're all like... He unlocked his powers. It was insane. We were all genuinely convinced this homie was controlling the wind. And, like, we saw him start giggling, and I was convinced, and I was like, holy fuck. So then that just convinced us to train harder and harder. And then the dad was like... This is working way better than I thought it would. And eventually we all like had this like fucking cult around ourselves, and like we were like at the bench, and we were fucking 5th graders, so people saw like all of us with the rings on, and they're like, haha, you guys are married, you gay. And we're like, I don't give a shit, I'm the protector of this world. I'm gonna fucking save your ass one day. I'm gonna become a superhero and fuck mad bitches and get a 6-pack, dude. I don't give a shit if you call me gay. I'm gonna fucking fight devils and shit. So then we would like sit with each other at lunch and discuss plans on how to defeat the enemies and shit, because we didn't even know what we were going up against. We didn't even know, but we had a despised plans of how to fucking defend the school and shit. And then eventually, and we were a team. It was beautiful. It built our friendship. It was all based on a lie, but it was one of the most beautiful friend groups I've ever had, and I loved it. So then eventually, his dad called us in for a meeting. It was an emergency, and he was like, all right guys, so each of you have these superpowers. Each of you have this good assigned to your being, but for each of the superpowers and each of the good people, there are devils that are going to come after you, and there are villains that are going to come after you with opposing superpowers. So each of you that have been assigned the powers also have to deal with the consequences of the villains that may come. And we were like, oh fuck. And then he's like, the homie's like, I have some intel on the villains you might face. They're coming for you, and they're plotting this shit. So then eventually, homie gives us descriptions of all of his villains. Like the main dude David, he had a villain with a fucking 2 like little knives, and he was like doing this shit and all that stuff. And my villain had a fucking whip, and he was like tall. He was like 30 years old, and he had like fucking brass knuckles and a whip, dude. It was insane. And I was like training even more. We learned about our villains. We learned that they might attack the school. I was ready. I was fucking ready, dude. And I was so excited. I like went home, and then my mom's like, "Why the fuck do you have a ring?" And I was like, "I can't tell you, it's a secret." And then I would fucking run home and like plan out how to defend the school and shit. It was insane. And then eventually, David took me aside because we had after school programs, and David took me aside during the after school programs. And he was like, "Homie, I'm gonna tell you something, a secret. I'm gonna tell you a secret. I don't tell anyone. But soon we might be able to enter another world, a portal to another dimension. And over there, my dad has prepared us companions." And I was like, "Companions?" He was like, "Yes, companions. Companions, Atlas. Companions." I was like, "What type of companions?" He was like, "Promise not to tell anyone?" I was like, "Yes, we've gone this far. We've blood, sweat, and tears training over this. I am willing to do anything. I will not tell a soul. I am willing to risk my life for whatever you have to tell me." He's like, "Alice, we got fucking dragons." And I cried on the inside. I cried. The amount of pure glee glistening through my body just overwhelmed me. Just that giddily childhood laughter everywhere. It was beautiful. I was like, "Fucking dragons?" He's like, "Dragons." And he described all the dragons, and I was like, "I want the blue one, obviously, because I have the fucking thunder." He's like, "Oh my god, the blue one has thunder powers. It's perfect for you." And I'm like, "I get a fucking thunder dragon? And I get to ride it and shit?" And he's like, "Yes. But only in the portal dimension, because dragons shall not be seen by normal humans, because that would ruin their existence, because years, millennia ago, they've been hunted down. So now they have to hide in other dimensions where the villains reign. And they have to hide in these other dimensions so they don't get hunted by humans." And I was like, "This makes sense. This makes perfect sense." And he's like, "They will accompany us in defeating the villains. But in return, since they're hiding in the dimension where the villains reign, we have to go there and save them." And I was like, "Oh my god, this makes so much sense. I must save my buddy, and then we can be bond. And I could have like a fucking pet dog, except he's in another dimension. He's a dragon that controls fucking lightning, dude." So I was like, yes, this makes sense." And he was like, "You promise you won't tell a soul?" And I was like, "I promise I won't tell a soul." And then immediately after, I told my sister. And then she laughed and was like, "That's not real, dude." And I was like, "No, it's real. We're gonna get fucking dragons, and I'm gonna let you ride my electronic dragon, and we're gonna fucking kill people." And she's like, "Okay, bud." It was fun. It was genuinely really fun talking about all this made-up shit, just pretending that we're gonna save the world, and just like thinking that I'm gonna have fucking superpowers one day if I train hard enough, and I'm gonna get to fucking ride a dragon and kill villains. Dude, are you insane? That's awesome. But eventually, I started realizing, as things went crazier and crazier, I started realizing, maybe this is just made up. Maybe I won't get a dragon. Maybe I won't become the god of thunder Thor. And it was sad. And the thing that helped me realize this was like, eventually I was torn. I was like, I don't think this is real. And then the main homie David was like, yeah, this is real. And then he's like, we got like all the gods, because apparently Greek gods are a thing now. And he's like, all the gods are here, and they're gonna help us defeat these villains and shit. And then he's like, all right, let me call up Hades real quick. And then he like called someone, and they didn't answer. And he's like, damn, Hades must be busy fighting the fucking villains. And I was like, Greek gods aren't real, you dumbass. I know dragons are real, but fucking Greek gods? That goes against my religion, because I was torn. My whole life, I've believed in Jesus and God. And believing in these Greek gods was hard, because I knew I had superpowers. I knew dragons were real. But also, young me believed in Jesus. And when I learned about these Greek gods, I was torn, because I was like, God, I know you gave me superpowers for a reason. And I know you're gonna give me a dragon because I've been a good, faithful Christian. But my friend keeps talking to these false gods. These false pretenses. Hades, Odin, and all this shit. These gods that are obviously not real. Unlike my dragons and my superpowers. And God, I'm sorry. I don't believe if I've been questioning your belief, but it's just hard because I know all this other shit is real. But then he comes in with these false gods, and I don't know if I could believe it anymore. And then it started making me question stuff. And then I talked about it with my sister, and she was like, it was never real. And I was like, was it never real? And she was like, no. And I was like, so the Greek gods aren't real, I know that. But my superpowers? She was like, no, it wasn't real. And I was like, but my dragons? And she's like, dragons aren't real. And I was like, I'm distraught. My whole view on the world, it's been destroyed. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through, I think. And I thought about it for a while. And I think I cried. I felt betrayed by the homie David. And I don't know. It was just a really hard thing for a fucking 9-year-old to go through, you know? It was painful. It was way worse than realizing that the tooth fairy wasn't real. It was way worse than being told Santa was fake. It was the worst fate a child can suffer. And I was suffering through it. But on the bright side, I was fucking ripped. But still, it was tough out there, homie. And even though I felt betrayed and lied to, I was glad. I had some really good times with the homies. I created a friend group and bonded with so many homies that probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't bond over the mutual lie that we were becoming Greek gods. And through the myths of all the gaslight, gatekeep, girl bossing experience that I went through, something special came out of it. And even though it's a dumb little story about a little tiny kid thinking he's gonna get superpowers and become God, I'm glad I went through it. It taught me, even if you are stupid, even if you bond over something stupid like becoming a god or just a stupid little movie, those times where you're bonding and being stupid with the homies, some dope shit. And lies about protecting the world aren't gonna change the fact that you and the homies had some good times. And I think that's special, you know? But yeah, that's the time I thought I was a superhero. Thanks for watching.
We'll meet again.